welcome back to the Thrive in Wabash County podcast. Excited for this episode. It's going to be a little bit different than what we've presented in the past. And really, it's all thanks to you, the listener. I cannot believe the support that we've felt in launching this podcast. I believe this is episode 19. And right from the beginning, the listeners, whether that's on our social media channels, seeing us in public, sending us a quick text message, the support of what we're trying to accomplish here has been unbelievable.
I agree.
And one of the things I find interesting is that we will get questions. Christine has a group of friends or people that she works with. They don't know Alex and I, or vice versa. And so they'll ask questions of us or of you, or I'll see somebody at Market Street and I'll get a tap on the shoulder and it's, hey, you don't know me, but I've really enjoyed listening to the podcast. I'm friends with Christine, or I know Alex from this organization. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And so, Christine, you had this idea, I think, a while back about kind of having a listener-provided question episode.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, so I thought, gosh, let's go ahead and toss this out there to our social media fan base. And I just used my personal social media page and said, hey, what do you want me to ask Alex and Adam? What would you like to know from us? And so we got a handful of great questions. Some of them are funny. Some of them are really thought-provoking. And so I thought we'd share those today and answer them.
I think it's a great idea. It's also a great reminder for the people that listen to the podcast. You can follow us on social media. We've got a Facebook page and an Instagram, and we do post questions, listener feedback quite often. Mm-hmm. And we also then tease the episodes that are coming out in the near future. And so it's a great resource for you. But we also have an email address. Christine, you want to provide that email address?
It's thrivepod@destinationwabashcounty.com.
Thank you.
And that's in all of our show notes as well.
So if you ever have ideas as a listener, what you want to hear, or guests you want to be in the studio, or topics you want covered, that is a great resource as well to reach out, and Christine monitors all of that.
Yeah, we also have a Google form that people can enter the topic that they'd like. It's kind of a longer version, and we just recently had one of those submitted this week about a future topic, and so we are slating for season 2, and so also that Google form is linked in all of our show notes as well for us to look what we would like to cover in the future. And we love suggestions, and we also love the energy from our listeners saying, hey, I think this might be something that people should know more about or would enjoy knowing more about. So absolutely, submit them.
Yep. And we've had some great episodes. Alex, you've had a couple here recently that have come out. The Patty Grant episode from me, just the way that she came across is so humble. And talking about the community foundation, her time there was really impactful. And then you as well. I mean, you've had some really, really good conversations. And I know you've got a side project, just a tease, that we're probably working on for 2026 with maybe not this podcast, but a spinoff.
Yes, wishing America happy birthday. Yeah, that'll come soon. We've got some details to put together, but it's once again made possible by all those people you'll share that make our podcast production a reality for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've had a lot of conversations with different people that have listened to the show or seen things on social media, and they're like, my gosh, how do you guys have enough time to do all that, right? And I think that's a good point to say it takes a lot more than just us showing up and having conversations like this or scheduling with a guest and sitting down in the studio. I always say I feel like that's the easy part, but grateful for Christine and her team there at Visit Wabash County as always, just leaning in, and the marketing team she has there that handles a lot of the marketing and promotions of the different episodes and social media posts and reels and everything that people may see on our social media. YouTube do a great job at posting on the social media just to keep the content going. But then also Black Label Studios, Shane Waters and his podcast production team do a fantastic job.
Shout out to Kim.
And bring it all together, right? And so, like I said, this is the easy part, but all the people behind the scenes that have been fantastic to work with, as this has been a new experience, I know for me and for us, as we've kind of leaned into this for the last how many months now since we started?
I think we dropped our first teaser at the end of May. So we have produced, I get the same question, Alex, how do you have time to do that? And I said, it's a great thing we do take turns, though. I mean, that does break the workload up that we each take turns hosting a guest, but you're right. The sitting down for an hour and having a great conversation, that's always worth our time. The behind the scenes, Biz, Brittany, Shane, Kim, all of those amazing people that come together to take what we did and make it something that our listeners can actually enjoy or watch. That is the tough part.
That's right.
Because, most of the time I'm a soup sandwich anyway, so there's a lot of cleanup.
Well, I think we just jump right into it. Christine, you've accumulated the questions over there, so I'll just let you direct the questions, and we'll go around the room and try to give them an honest answer.
Okay. Alrighty. This is from avid listener Deanne Clifton. What is one professional trait that you have had to develop over the years?
Alex, you want to take this one first?
Patience, not just professionally, but personally, I've never been very patient. So that's the first one that comes to mind for me. And now, I mean, the first few years of my career was almost a one-man band. It felt like I worked with a larger company in Fort Wayne right out of college and worked on a team, but then kind of started my own small consulting business and did that for a few years, and multi-client. Started doing a lot of work here in Wabash County, and always used that most days it felt like I was on a team with 30,000, getting to work across community and organizational lines and with residents, just moving different projects and programs forward. But the reality of it is I was a team of one. In the hard days, I definitely felt that at times, but making the transition to the Community Foundation in March and leading our team there, fantastic team there, it has been different, right? And it's an adjustment, something that has been a great learning experience for me, and just making sure that that patience has been helpful, but all of that has just been a great learning experience for me, and pouring into our team and trying to serve our team every day, and was fortunate to the situation that I was able to walk into and the talented team that we have at the Community Foundation. But those would be main things for me.
Christine, anything from you?
Yes. Mine was, it doesn't always have to be done my way for it to be right. The phrase I'd heard early in my professional career is there are more than one ways to skin a cat, meaning it can be done in different elements to other people's talents. And so that took me a while to appreciate the way others approach their work. And some don't. Part of that's patience. Some don't approach it as aggressively as I do or in the same format as I do, but that doesn't mean that that way is not the right way. It's just a different way.
Yeah. I would say persistence, especially in sales. You know, you're told no over and over again, but just keeping that, confidence that you can work through that, and eventually when the opportunity presents itself, it's going to be there. But I also then think that leads into yours as well, with patience, not trying to rush the situation and be open to it when it gets there. So, Deanne, great question.
That was a good question.
Really good question.
Are you ready for the next one? When you moved to Wabash County, did you think at that time it would be forever? And that's from Jan Rowland.
Good question, Jan. When I moved here, yes, I kind of thought it would be forever, or at least long term. I was moving here because I was raising a family and I wanted a small community. And so I moved to Rowan initially and wanted to raise my kids in a small community where they knew their neighbors and safe to walk down the street. And so I knew that I was going to be here for at least probably 20 years until they were, out of high school and moved out on their own, and then figure that out afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I grew up in Indianapolis and knew that when I went off to college at Manchester University that I was never moving back to Indianapolis when I was done with school, and really fell in love with Wabash County, with the North Manchester community when I was at Manchester for my 4 years, and really wanted to stay in that area, and felt that when I was going through school, I was doing everything I could to professionally prepare myself to be ingrained within the community. Mm-hmm. And then COVID hit as I was about ready to graduate from college, and I was 2 months from graduation, no job lined up yet, and really nervous and concerned about it. It was just a different time, and ended up getting a job with a company based out of Fort Wayne and was doing things across the Northeast Indiana area. And so North Manchester, Wabash County wasn't the most convenient place to live by any means, but really enjoyed, as I'd mentioned, my time at Manchester and in the community. And it was that connection, like I've talked about on the podcast in many different episodes, but that connection within this community is something I felt early on in my time at Manchester. And so I've stayed ever since, even doing some work down in Indianapolis. And as I mentioned, different parts of the state. Wabash County's never been the most convenient place to live until the last few years of my career. But man, I don't see myself and plan on raising my family here hopefully someday. I'm glad that I didn't move away after I graduated from Manchester.
We're glad you didn't either, both of you. We're better for both of your efforts and commitment to this community, so thank you for that, for making that choice. We made it easy, though, for you to want to be here. For me, I was born in Ohio but moved here when I was 8 and then did some moving around, and in my young adulthood didn't think I would stay here, but opportunity presented itself. There was a time when my mom wasn't very well, and so I needed to be close, and then I just, similar to both of you, I just started to get really active in being on different committees and in my work. And so very early on, and then I got married, had a child. And so, no, then after that, it was never another option to ever want to be someplace else. It is incredibly special here to be able to be a part of the great impact, no matter the size of the project, and the feeling that everyone is invited to the table to bring whatever talent that they have. No matter what the project is, you can find something. And so that gives me purpose outside of being a wife, outside of being a mother, and even outside of my career. It gives me the ability to connect with the place that I live, but it's received well. It's not forced. That was a good question.
Another great question, Jan. Thank you.
Jan. Okay. This is from our executive producer, Shane Waters. If the three of us were stuck on an island, what would we assign each other as our main responsibility? Christine picks for Adam. Adam picks for Alex. Alex picks for Christine. And Shane says he also acknowledges that if he were with us, he would be in charge of picking the coconuts.
Perfect role for Shane.
Yes, he could reach them
with
very little
from the
effort.
ground.
From the ground. Yes, he could.
I was
So-
behind Shane. Sorry to interrupt.
No.
I was behind Shane at Modoc's the other day in downtown Wabash, in line ordering a coffee, and he was in front of me, and his collar was up in the back. And I was like, oh, I was standing behind him. I feel comfortable enough with Shane, right, to fix his collar in line. And I didn't. I felt myself almost on my tippy toes trying to reach up to fix his collar in the back. Sorry, go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, so Shane wants us to pick. We're stuck on an island.
If we're on the island and I have to give Alex a role,
Yeah.
Alex is going to put together the economic development type plan of how are we going to build houses or condos. How are we going to recruit people in to live on those? So it will no longer, we don't have to leave the island. We're going to bring people to sustain the island.
Okay, very good.
That is good.
So I'm going to put the idea out there maybe of how we're going to do that. But if I'm assigning Christina responsibility, Christina is going to help put all the pieces together, A to Z, and all of the steps, sub-steps, and process in order to bring those people here. And we'll have it well documented in case something happens to us, that the next people on the island will also have a process to make sure that it comes to fruition.
Yeah, there will definitely be an SOP, and there will probably be a backup SOP as well, just in case something changes, then you already know what to do.
Just like the podcast studio. If we had a camera that was showing the studio, there's lists and steps that I'm not criticizing, extremely grateful always for. But that's kind of how, when Christine and I get to work on a project together, that's kind of how it goes, right? It's she and I sit down, and within 24 hours, there's an SOP in place that can help actually bring it to fruition from just being an idea.
No, that's the fun part, is actually taking the dream and putting it into action. If I get to pick then for Adam, Adam is going to be the one who starts to gather the resources. He's going to be on it. He's like, what do we immediately need right now? Okay, we got to build a fire. We got to get things together for a shelter. We're going to have to eat at some point. Like, he's going to be the resource gatherer and start lining it up while we're over here trying to build a plan, write the plan, and execute it. Resource guy right there.
Well, I'm good with that. Sign me up.
Yeah.
Let's go.
It must be why we do so well at balancing, approaching things like this podcast is one. I mean, we've had lots of conversations on other projects, been invited to different tables, but it must be why we're pretty balanced, I would say, in the way we approach our work.
I would agree.
All right, Shane, we hope you approve of our suggested work roles for each other.
Shane, that was a very creative question. I like that.
Me too. But from his wife, a little deeper. From Alicia Waters. What is one piece of wisdom that someone shared with you that has had an impact on your life?
Whew, I think I'll
It's a
take
big one.
Yeah, that's that. We did change. We're a little deeper now.
Yeah.
I would say my dad.
Gives us a little peek into their marriage. Sorry. Shane's question is, he's gathering the coconuts. What are we doing on a stranded island?
Yeah.
And his wife is, no.
No, we're contemplating.
Life lessons.
Yes.
Life lessons.
How do
Sorry,
we grow
Adam.
from this?
Go ahead.
I would say my dad taught me from an early age that if you're not growing and learning and moving forward, then you're actually moving backwards. You can't just stay where you're at, because you're going to lose. And so I think that's instilled in me a lot to continue to work for what's next. What can I do to better myself and better the groups that I'm working with? Because even if it's me personally or if it's at Visit Wabash County as a board member, if we're just doing the same thing year after year, day after day, we're not going to move forward. We've got to be a leader in the industry. So I appreciate what he taught me there.
And I'm sure you mentioned personally, but also professionally, approaching your work every day is extremely valuable to the business you work with in your role. For me, it's something that has definitely been verbally communicated to me before, but really in my time in Manchester, my offensive coordinator that recruited me out of high school, who was there for 4 years, and he lived every single day and taught me work ethic. I always thought growing up or through high school that I had a work ethic, right, and working towards things, but really at Manchester, my 4 years at Manchester, I felt like I grew up, found myself, and some of those core values that I still try and work for and the non-negotiables in my life today. And he taught me that just by every single day how he approached his work, first one in, last one out. It was truly walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And so for me, as I look back in the last 5 years of my career, and what I try to do every single day is what are the things that I can control. I always look in football through college and then in my career, I've never been the most athletic, most talented, most naturally gifted, smartest person in any room I'd ever been in, but just trying to level the playing field with those things that I can control. And work ethic has always been one of those, and putting my head down and whatever I don't know, spending additional time to try and learn as much as I can about it and really diving right in and being in the trenches with something. And so I'm just grateful for that. And that's something hopefully that I display and lead in that way, and as hopefully becomes contagious to others that I'm fortunate enough to work on different projects with. But bringing an energy and a work ethic is something that I've always found myself as something that I can control in what I do. How about you, Christine?
Two things kind of came to me thinking about this question. The first is my mother. She always used to say, leave it better than you found it. So whether that's trash on the ground, whether that's a project that you're working on, where you are, be present and leave it better than you found it. And then I worked for Kellum Incorporated a long time ago, and Jeff Kellum would say, begin with the end in mind. Where do you want to go? And now back it up. How do you get there? And those two key pieces are still present in the work that I do today, in my personal life and in my professional life. Must be why I have all those SOPs.
Yeah, the end's in mind.
The end is in mind.
Yeah,
Where do we want to go and how do we want to get there?
Yeah,
Well,
that's fantastic.
Thanks, Alicia, for pushing us to think a little deeper. You ready for another one?
What do you got?
Okay. This one's from Neil Beaver. He wants to know, where do you take people if they're from out of town?
Alex, you want to take this one first?
Yeah, absolutely. My family still lives around the Indianapolis area primarily, and so they know when they come up to visit that they're going to get the Wabash County tour, as do my friends. But what I've really enjoyed doing since I've lived here is taking the opportunity when there's a community event, whether it's a fundraiser for a nonprofit, whether it's an outdoor adventure series activity or an experience that Visit Wabash County puts together, inviting friends and family to come with me to those experiences because they do highlight the best that Wabash County has to offer. And also just seeing them experience those things or those people or places remind me not to take it for granted every single day. So I've really enjoyed that, but definitely enjoy going out on the river trail. Running around the river trail is a fantastic amenity here in Wabash County, and the speakeasy and different restaurants and things that our community has to offer. And truly love going to shows at Honeywell and Eagles Theater, and dinner beforehand in downtown Wabash on a summer night is unlike anything. And so just the things that I appreciate our experience here in our community, showing that those different things off and highlighting that has been awesome for the people that are special to me that don't live in Wabash County.
Mm-hmm. I love that you do that. That is something truly, when you say you invite guests to charity events, you'll buy a table, and it's often that Alex has a whole group of people that we've not met before because you're showcasing our community. So you've always done that early on. So thank you for doing that. That's a really great suggestion for the rest of us. If we're attending an event like that, to also use that as a tool to help tell our story and show off what we have and the work that we're doing, right? That charitable work that we're doing.
Yeah. How about you, Christine?
So my husband's family grew up in LaGrow, and my father-in-law lives in Florida now. So every time he comes back, it's really fun for me to take him to the community of LaGrow because he grew up when it was in its original height, saw it suffer and have some troubled times. And for him to see the way that community and others are pouring back into LaGrow, that's always fun. It's inspiring. And it's what I love about the story of LaGrow, this comeback story of LaGrow, is it's inspiring some of our other rural communities. And so if you listened to Alex's episode with Bob Ferguson, love that guy, he talks about being inspired and also inspiring other small communities right here in Wabash County. So LaGrow is an easy, fun one because of the connectivity, because of the grit, because of the hard work, because in addition to, they don't stop moving. That community is like, okay, we've got a river trail. Now we've built a restaurant. Now we have an Airbnb. Now we're taking homes and we're developing them and we're getting new residents to move to the area, townhomes, apartments, retail businesses, public art. And so that that renaissance that LaGrow has been through is incredible to show off to others.
It sure is.
It's contagious, right? That momentum is contagious countywide.
Yep. I think we're seeing Manchester will be another big impactor for, I think, even communities outside of Wabash County, because they're in the northern part of the county. I think what they're doing is going to impact even their neighbors to the north and stuff as well. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think right now, if somebody's listening to this podcast has never been to LaGrow or North Manchester, they'll go and see a lot of exciting things going on in the community. But I'll tell you, getting to work closely, like we all do, alongside the leaders of the different businesses, for-profit, nonprofit organizations, local elected officials, it has been years and years in the making, right? We talk about that a lot on different episodes, but the leaders of each of our communities, it's just consistent leadership, right? Consistent innovation, consistent trying to push the envelope. And that's what people will get to see today and in the years to come from our communities as these projects continue to, buildings be renovated, new things being built, new art going in. It's just years of building on that momentum, that contagious momentum that now we're experiencing in the county.
For sure.
yeah. If I have friends or family that come in from out of town, I live very, very close to downtown, walking distance. And so we will start and we'll walk towards the YMCA. So kind of get, we don't go in, but they get to see. And we've also got a park that's right across the street. We'll walk the river trail, which will take you past the river and then White Rock. And so like, oh, you guys have canoeing here, right? It just generates questions. And the outdoor fitness court. And we'll walk that over to Paradise Spring and then come back through downtown. And by the time you get to downtown, maybe you want a drink or you want a little bite to eat. It gives you an opportunity to stop into one of our local establishments, but also show off the Charlie Creek Inn. Eagles Theater Marquee is lit up. What other small town has a theater that old that's been renovated but still has that historic charm? Before then, we had back up to my house by the beautiful renovated and expanded library. They get to see a little bit of a lot of different things, and there's so much happening in the community. And so it just gives them more questions to ask and ask and ask along the way. And then you find that one thing that they want to go do. Like, hey, we went past this shop. It was kind of like hippie-ish. And I'm like, oh, yeah, Bellazo, let's go back, like dive into that. So
It's interesting to hear you describe downtown Wabash because it's a little bit of everything. It's outdoor recreation. You talk about the trail, art and entertainment, the Honeywell Center, the Eagles Theater, retail, history. So you have the history. The museum is on that one anchor. Paradise Spring is a green space, but also has historical significance and culture, right? Yeah. Art, public art, all within a 4-block radius. It's a great way to showcase of what rural Indiana can look like.
Yeah, in a city of 11,000 people and a county of 30,000, right, as a county seat, it's,
Yeah.
And along the way, how many times are people going to stop you and say, oh, how's it going, right? Yeah. And then they just think that everyone, which we don't, but it just creates this sense of community that your neighbor, the business owner, people care.
And that's the biggest difference, right? For somebody that grew up in a big city, I know I've shared this before, but then when I bring people to this community or to an event or downtown just walking, that's the biggest difference is how the people are, right? Whether you know them, whether you're not, it's just the people are different in rural communities, our rural community. And that's what created the stickiness for me. Yes, all the things we just shared, those amenities, those things are fantastic and we all enjoy them, right? But the coolest part for me, the biggest difference for me is the people.
Totally agree.
Yeah, the hinge pin is sincere, real relationship.
That's right.
Yeah.
Remind me, who asked that question?
That was Neil Beaver.
Neil, great question.
Yeah, for sure. Next, this one's a little long and it's thought-provoking too. So this was submitted by Chris and Amber White. We all know that you're all specialists in the fields you're currently in. If things were different, what job would you like to have if your current one wasn't available? And what kept you from pursuing that job to begin with?
I will start on this one. I love the small family-owned business that I work for, fourth generation. But if that wasn't available to me, I would completely change what I've been doing my entire life, which has mostly been in sales. I would be a travel writer or a food blogger, writer, critic of some sort. I found this out later in life. I didn't have the opportunity to travel as much when I was younger. But as I've been able to travel more, I absolutely love it. And I've also love food. So that's what I would be doing.
That fits. That tracks. That tracks. What about you, Alex? Do you know? Do you or what did you want to be when you were a kid? Did you have a childhood like, this is what I want to do when I grow up?
I don't think so. When I was really young, I was really into U.S. history, U.S. government, and the presidents. And I remember as a young kid, I had like posters of all the U.S. presidents in my bedroom, right? And just
stop it.
I swear.
Stop it.
I think before I was, my mom could tell you, but before I was 8 years old, probably I could tell you all of them in order, memorized them just because they were on my room. So, but
I'm not surprised.
In terms of what else I would do, I mean, Christine, I think you're in the same boat, Adam, but I absolutely love what I get to do every single day. I think back to the different experiences I've had early in my career, the last 5 years, and I think they've all culminated, and God has placed me at this point in my life exactly where I'm supposed to be. I feel I am so fortunate to get to do the work that I do here in our community and with the people I get to do it with. And so just being a good steward of that, I feel I wake up every day and attack every day, and it doesn't feel like work. Even on the hard days, I still love what I get to do every single day. And I'm so grateful for that because I know that everybody doesn't get to enjoy that, right? And so in this season of life and hopefully moving forward, I just absolutely love being at the Community Foundation, the variety of organizations and people that we're hopefully able to impact and continue to impact. I know that we impact from the work that we get to do is special, and so I don't take that for granted. However, as I have thought about if I was doing something different in our community, what would that be? I think about some of the other organizations that I get to work with and see kind of up close and personal the work that they get to do. The work at Manchester University obviously has impacted me and my experience, and so I'm not sure what that looks like or what my role would be necessarily if I had to pick something different, but love the opportunity that Manchester has created for our community where we know we have 1,000 young people for 4 years in a row that are spending 9 months out of the year in our community, right? And building their future, building their life no different than Manchester did for me. So I think that's really exciting. The work that Josiah White's is doing, we'll have an episode with Matthew Perkey, the president and CEO from Josiah White's. That's fantastic to hear his vision and how genuine and his story of how he's leading that organization. But 175 years of the impact that organization has had, not just in Wabash County, but for people across the country is really, really special. And bringing young people to Christ, bringing young people to create a future for themselves is fantastic. But I did see the other day that Mike Kiefaber retired from MSD, and he and his wife are already working at the Honeywell Center, volunteering for Honeywell. And man, I love live music, travel all over to hear live music, go to a lot of Honeywell shows throughout the year. And I think that would be fantastic to get to be a volunteer usher at Honeywell and just see all the people of our community or people that are coming in for the shows, welcome them. But then the best part would be to get to hear different artists, right, that Honeywell brings to town. So that was a long answer, but
good.
You know,
I literally had this vision, though, of Alex as an usher dancing. Like, he gets into it. He's volunteering, but he's also into it. Like, he becomes,
no doubt about it,
the sideshow of watching because you say that you have shared, you have hopped on a plane like Friday night, went to a show and back the next day, or, you've done a 24-hour trip just to see live music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be back at your desk. Well, my childhood dream was a little bit different. I wanted to be Wonder Woman, not one of the U.S. presidents. Nothing wrong with that, of course.
That also sounds like the worst job in the world. that sounds
Wonder
like
Woman?
a terrible.
No,
Wonder Woman would be great. You
Yeah.
being the U.S. president. My
Oh,
God.
yeah, no, don't want, no, I can't do that. Too sensitive. But I wanted to be Wonder Woman. Linda Carter, old school. I had the underoos. I mean, like, I was in it. Choo, choo. That's how she blocked bullets. But truly career-wise and somewhat similar to how you shared, I truly believe God put me where he wanted me as well. When I went through my career path, I wasn't looking. Each place I was asked to join it, which is a gift and a placement. And so When I went to work for a industrial commercial construction company, I was asked to come work there, and at a young age. And then when I went and worked for different work, then when I went to work for Honeywell, I was asked to apply there. And the same when I was at United Fund, I was asked to apply for that position. And then take me where I am today at Visit Wabash County, the board of directors thought I might be a good fit. So I cannot imagine currently, I've been at Visit Wabash County for over 14 years. I have zero desire to do anything else as long as I'm making a difference with where I'm at and if I'm moving it forward and am progressive, as long as the board of directors will have me. But I love truly what I do every day. That is a sincere statement. Every year when I have to give a recap to the leadership, Wabash County Commissioners and the mayor of the City of Wabash on our year in review, I always share that I love what I get to do every day. It is a blessing and it is a gift, and I do not take my role for granted. So I'm sorry, Chris and Amber, I really can't think of another career that I would want to do or fill, but that doesn't mean that if someone were to come and ask, as my past had been, that I might not be able to serve in a different capacity. But I'm not actively and could never imagine being anywhere else.
Great answer.
That was a long one, too. Whew. Let's see here. We're getting down to the end of our listeners' questions. This one's from Jennifer Long Dillon. She says, if you couldn't live in Wabash County, where would you live and why? You couldn't live here. It's not an option. Where would you live and why?
I would live in Madison, Indiana. Since I started doing work in rural economic community development, especially with the work here with the Magic 25 in Wabash County, I started taking what I call quarterly retreats to other small towns in Indiana and just going in on a Friday, maybe meeting with elected officials or counterparts in that community on Friday, but then just being a tourist in that community and trying to reset, refresh, and getting a lot of different perspectives, ideas to then bring back home to my work here in Wabash County. And so I've really enjoyed that. Madison, Indiana is one of my favorite places to be. I describe it as downtown Madison. On their main street there is like kind of from the Honeywell Center to the History Museum on Market Street and our downtown and the vibrancy that's there. Multiply that by 4 or 5, and that's the distance. Mm-hmm. And then they are similar distance from the river as our downtown is also, but really enjoyed my time in Madison.
Have you been to Madison?
I have.
Yeah.
I have. They do a lot on the river, too. They have some big events. Their river.
The regatta every July.
Yeah, that's it.
Boat race there
Huge.
on the Ohio River. Yeah, that's the other thing, too, is I think the Ohio River is probably 4 or 5 times, if not more, wider than the Wabash River, but it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. Yep. Absolutely.
How about you, Christine?
Mine is Lucerne, Switzerland. I have been gifted with the ability to travel in my latter years and have seen lots of places in the United States, but a lot of other places abroad. And Lucerne is just beautiful. The mountains in the background, their mineral lake, Lake Lucerne, is gorgeous. It's blue. It's super walkable, has a great mix of modern amenities, but still preserves its historic architecture and churches. It feels like you're in a postcard when you're there. The food's great.
Yeah, I, like you, I've been able to travel later in life, and I've been international a couple times, and so I don't know if I could narrow it down to one place that I would live. I really enjoyed my time in Portugal, and especially in some of the really small, quaint towns, of just, think of Legros, right? I mean, 100, 200 people in a small community that know each other, but the scenery, and it's just beautiful, and the food is amazing. But then my other one is Nicaragua. I've been there 4 times now and love the culture, the people, the food. I love that they have volcanoes there. I've hiked the volcanoes, and so, and you've got ocean as well. So I'd have a hard time choosing between those two.
When you come back from Nicaragua, you're changed.
Yeah.
You're still wearing that place and space when you're here. Yeah.
Especially after my first time down there, I was 40, but I treated it as like I was 20, and I was on my first international backpacking trip, and so I hitchhiked in the back of a beer truck to get from community to community. I didn't have a car or anything down there. Walked a lot, met people from all over the world that were 18 to 21 years old who were from mostly European countries that were doing their couple years of travel around the United States. Changed me forever. So I wish I had that opportunity when I was younger to do that. And it's just part of why, if you listen to the adventure episode that I did with Stephanie Rogers earlier on, at the tail end of that, my son came on, who's 20 years old, and he's been doing his own adventure across the United States by foot. And so when he presents that to me, that's what makes it easier for me as a parent to say, this is a great idea, because I do wish that I had that opportunity to do something out of the norm when I was younger. So
I catch myself pouring into Cassidy, my daughter, the same way, instilling that love of travel in her at a younger age so that she has more years to experience and see other places and people and cultures, not only outside the United States, but also how much the United States' landscape changes from east to west, north to south.
And people.
Yeah, sure.
We're all very, very different, but we're all very the same too. Like, right? We all want the same. When it comes down to it, we all want the exact same thing.
Acceptance, love.
Yeah.
We could go, that could be a whole nother deeper episode. The gifts of the Spirit.
Have to bring up my Africa trip if we do a separate episode.
Well, yes, because you were a little nervous to go, and you were gone for quite some time.
Yeah.
I forget how long that trip was.
Week.
We were emailing about something. And this just popped in my head. We were emailing about something. I said, are you in the middle of a hut somewhere? And he said, well, actually, yes, I am.
Always working.
Always. Progress, right? Progress. I want to make sure I don't miss any of these. This is a good list. All right. I think I have one more. It is from Brooks Floor. Get ready.
Wow.
Get ready. Yeah. When he asked me this, and when he told me what to write down, I asked him, what would you like me to ask Adam and Alex? And so he told me. So I will be super honest and share, when it's my turn to go, to share actually what came to mind the moment he asked me. If you knew you were going to die tomorrow, what would you do today?
Whew, Brooks.
Bringing it
question.
in. Bringing it in.
If I knew I was going to die tomorrow.
What would you do today? You're going through it, right? You're like thinking, do I go get my people? Do I finish up my project? Do I set my out of office email? Like, what do we do here? I will share with you, since I do have some time to think, the very first thing.
Yeah, thanks for the heads up about that.
Well,
that would have been nice to get last night.
Yeah. So I will share with you, honestly, the very first thing that popped into my head was, I hope I have witnessed enough about my faith and relationship in Christ to others before my time is up. And then I went on into, all right, I got to go find my daughter Cassidy, and we're going to sit down and have a really great meal and like that quality family time. But that was the first thing, was like, oh my gosh, have I witnessed to enough people? Have I done my part? Yeah.
That is one heck of a question, Brooks. I would say my first thought was, get my people. Yeah. I've got several really close friends, my boys, my parents, my sister, brother, their kids. I want my people, and just have community. But that's a really tough question.
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, I think each of us, and I know you both live your lives every single day of letting Christ pour through you into other people. Like, I feel that in your presence. I feel that from your leadership. Like, Adam, the way that you approach every single day and with positivity. And for me, I think, gosh, definitely, obviously, pray.
Yeah.
Thank God and ask God.
Take me.
That's right. Yeah. But no, I would say just spend the day being as generous as I can with people, how I treat people, go through just a day in the life of an everyday routine. I think if you only have one day left to try and say, travel somewhere I always wanted to go, I feel like that's very surface. For me, it would just be live my day, but truly live it. If I have the opportunity to know when my last day is coming, truly live it like it's your last day. And just think about how intentional you'd be with every interaction you had that day.
That's true.
With everybody. Right? And yeah, that's a good perspective question. I mean, for all of us, we just get to interact with in our day jobs, right? And just lives, we interact with so many different people. And so if we truly knew when the last day was coming, just to pour into people with a generous heart and as best as you can that last day.
You know, you see those memes of like, live it like it's your last day. But for us to be called to articulate that outward, it is a lot harder. But I had a vision too of Alex and you just throw into money and food and what do you need? Here, you want my shoes? You want what can I give you of mine? You can use this better than me, because you both do have servants' hearts and you both are very generous with who you are and how you can walk along people and support and help them. So I could see that very easily.
I completely different scale, but I'm finding myself at the end of, and you just went through this with Cassidy a few years back, the last moments of certain things, right? So my youngest will be graduating from high school, and so this is his last soccer season, and he has one game left. I'm not waiting for that last game to like fully be aware and be present. It's every game. It's just like it's getting narrower and narrower, and you feel like you're going to miss out on something. And when you read that question, that's exactly what I thought about, was like all the things that you could potentially miss out on if that window is just one day.
Yeah. When you have one child, it's your first and last everything. And so first and last kindergarten, and it goes all the way through. But it is a joy to watch your adult children doing what they're called to do with purpose. And another follow-up just thought, Brooks must have been really feeling like deep, because he said, when he was thinking about what he would want to ask us, he said, you think about your children growing up, but while your children are growing up, you're growing up too. And your parents are growing up too. And so you, as a parent, you get so focused on your child in front of you, the child forgets that their parent is still growing up. And we as the parent forget our parents are still growing. And so he was profound.
Yeah, man.
Whoa.
I'm not going to let me be alone with Brooks. Who knows how I'll feel at the end of the day.
Depends how many Miller Lights that shift his thoughts,
Yeah.
Those deep thoughts with Brooks floor on the deck, they can take you there.
Adam, when you were talking, and Christine, your point there, obviously, if we know it's your last day, right, you're being extra intentional with how generous you're being, pouring into every conversation, but also just being in that moment and appreciating the little things, right? I think life is so fast, right? And we're just in our every single day, and just taking that moment to be grateful and appreciate every single moment. We share just how much we love what we get to do every single day, but oftentimes just being where our feet are, reflecting on that. And I think if we knew it was our last day, gosh darn, we would be in that moment and appreciate every little thing that every other day may fly through, but take extra appreciation for it in that moment.
Yeah.
Be present now. Now is all we have right now.
Those were great questions from the listeners.
Yeah.
Would you guys be up for taking another question or two?
You have?
I've got one that I've come up with.
Okay.
If you could give a TED Talk today, what would the TED Talk topic be?
If I were to give a TED Talk today, mine would be about the power of hard work and sweat equity. If you can dream it, you can do it. Get the right people around you and don't stop moving forward. Don't settle. And so I don't care whether your community, your circle is massive or small. There is something to be accomplished by all of us. And so I would want to do a TED Talk on just more of like, if you can dream it, you can achieve it, which sounds cliche, but is true if you work toward it. Go back to what Randy Stakeman told you. If you're not growing, you're going backward. So I got animated. I'm passionate about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it would be all focused around like choosing a rural community or changing the game in rural communities, right? I think that young people have such an opportunity in rural communities. I think that the trend that we've seen of it being cool to move to a big city or live in a big city that a lot of young people do today, if they grow up in a rural community, I think that that's valuable perspective, right? But growing up in a big city and choosing to live in a rural community, I would focus the TED Talk about the opportunity to make an impact personally, professionally, whatever it was, in a rural community, and how much quicker you can do that, how much fulfillment you can find just from small efforts, big efforts, the opportunity early in your career, early in your life, to be at tables you don't belong at, if you're willing to work for it, right, and pour into the place that you're living, but also for the really, really small things every single day that can have such a large impact. That's something that isn't the case in bigger cities or everywhere, that definitely is in rural communities. And so I really do think it's going to be cool again to live in rural Indiana and to live in Wabash County specifically, just because of all the things that are going on here. So giving a TED Talk that's tailored towards young people who maybe have grown up here, young people who may be at Manchester University, or young people just as an audience in general, talking about the value of living in a rural community.
Yeah, that would be a great topic. I think it also goes back to, we've talked about a lot of this before, but the cost of living in a small community, the impact that you can make right away, but then you get, because of the cost of living, you get to travel more, right?
Yeah.
You get to go, instead of living in Chicago all the time, you get to go visit Chicago, then you get to go visit San Francisco, you get to go to Tokyo, because you've been able to save and do
Fly
that.
to see a concert, right?
That's right.
Overnight.
That's right.
Yeah.
But wake up every day knowing your neighbors and knowing that you can walk to the Modocs and have coffee with somebody is...
And that connection to people, right? That sense of community, connection to people, it's contagious. You talk about LaGrow, that's why I moved to LaGrow, right? Was because of the contagious momentum that was going on there. And
You can feel it. You physically feel this energy, this aliveness here.
yeah, it's almost tangible here.
Did you share yours?
Well, if I had to do a TED Talk, I think it would be about, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do it. As an example, there's no noise ordinance during the day. Just because your car stereo can go up to, jet engine level as you drive down the street doesn't mean that you should.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you love music, but think about the impact that it has on other people around you, right? Mm-hmm. Just because you have an opinion about somebody's way of life doesn't necessarily mean that you need to share that with them. I think we've forgotten about respecting the other people and what their beliefs matter too, and that your opinion of them doesn't always need to be heard.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
Yeah.
We'll probably get booked by TED Talk soon. Get ready for the calls to roll in. I'm confident about it.
Can we create our own TED Talk, call it something else, do it on Eagles Theater
I
stage?
feel like we could. Next project, 2027. I'll get working on
Add
the
it
plan.
to the list.
Add it to the list.
Christine, do you have any questions?
Let's see here. Oh, yeah. Okay. I've got one. What's your favorite thing about this podcast?
My favorite thing about this podcast, or going through this experience, and it's truly, I think, when we started talking about the podcast, that's something that I was most excited about. And so to actually see it come to fruition and get to experience it, but just the value of highlighting the stories, the people that are behind some of the projects or organizations or community efforts that we may all know about, or some of us know in our own circles, but the opportunity to share that with people that are living in Wabash County today and people that are outside Wabash County listening to the podcast, bringing awareness to those things. We've talked about Daniel's Place and Cheryl working on the podcast. And if you've listened to that episode or watched that episode, the genuineness behind Cheryl and that work, people, if they haven't heard that podcast, they'll see Cheryl's, maybe see things online about Daniel's Place, see a new building here in the next few months that's coming out of the ground. But the people behind the stories and the projects in our community is the most special thing about Wabash County. And so this podcast, when we were talking about it, was to create a platform to share those stories and those people, to raise awareness locally, but also just to tell those stories, highlight those people, highlight what's most important and what's the thing that makes Wabash County what it is, and it's the people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so just getting to be a part of those conversations and the different guests that we've had on the show, it'll continue to have, is what I was most excited about and has been my favorite part about the podcast.
I would second that. From first solo episode that I released, which was for the Cordis Berry Farm, the number of people that reached out after that episode and said, I've known Jared and Erica. I've gone to the Berry Farm. I didn't know this about them, right? I didn't know that Erica grew up outside of this area. I didn't know they ran in college. It just added that human element to a business owner, right? Mm-hmm. Or when your episode with Matthew Perkey comes out, I hope that people that they've heard of Matthew, they've know the work that they're doing out there, but if they see him walking downtown, they've now put a face and a name together, and they wouldn't be hesitant to go, Matthew, I heard the podcast, really appreciate the work you guys are doing.
Yeah.
That's powerful for Matthew. That's powerful for the community member that's walking downtown that now feels connected to that local thing. I will also add that for me, this podcast is way different than my day-to-day work. You guys both get to be community involved and creative, thinking projects. And I'm mostly in sales, and most of my territory is outside of Wabash County. I love this community and I pour my heart into it. But in my day-to-day, this is way outside of my norm. And so getting together with you or a guest to highlight what they're doing and how their impact is really, really changing Wabash County, that has really been good for me at my heart.
Well, I'll just add on to what I agree with everything you both have shared. I mentioned this to Adam the other day. I was at an event and several different people came up and said, hey, I know you don't know me, but I listened to the podcast. It's really great. And I'm sharing with others to inspire them. And Adam's response to me was, it's working. And that is that our hope is that we make sure that we remind ourselves, and you say this often, Alex, that the people who live here understand and feel like stakeholders and have a deeper connection to where they are. But those outside of our community recognize that this could be a place that could be their home too. If all else, visit and see what's happening and what's different. And this podcast, I love to learn new things, but it takes me sometimes a while to feel secure in taking a leap into a project. You both are very good at recognizing that in me. And so as colleagues and as friends, I thank you both for looking and saying, this is possible. And kind of, I don't want to use the word push. You just gave patience while I came to the same conclusion that we could manage this and do this well. I didn't want to launch something that didn't have a future of longevity and that wouldn't be done well. Not that we're not passionate, but it's been awesome to learn from how do we use a soundboard, an audio board, and software to having these conversations and sharing a space, all three of us together when we get to sit down. And then it's really exciting for me to hear the way that each of you have conversations and lead those dialogues, because in every single one of your conversations you've had, and even my own, I've learned something, which makes me grow even more and believe even more in Wabash County and in its strength and its future. It's going in a direction.
Yeah, the stories that we get to share, the people that we get to talk to are the reasons why we are so passionate and love this place.
Yes.
And I want everybody to get to feel that same love and passion that lives in this community. And the majority of the community spent much more time here than I have, right? And so I'm still very, very new to Wabash County, but just have been so fortunate to get to meet all of these different people and work with them on things. And so if we can use this as a platform to remind people why they choose to live in this community or to highlight stories that they may never have heard before, and that just increases their passion or love for this place that now they're communicating to their kids or their friends, and then their kids are growing up in a household and in a community that they're hearing these positive things and hearing about a community that's pouring into them every single day to create opportunities for them to come back to and raise their family someday. That's what I get really excited about, and what I hope this podcast is just one piece of an overall strategy to continue to do that and work in here in our community.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, do you have a question? If not, I've got another question. But
Go ahead, Adam.
You want me to go
Yep,
for it?
all you.
All right, this will be our final question, and we'll wrap things up. Alex, if there's one thing that Wabash County has to get right, what is it?
Man, I'm going to steal a little bit from my last comment. I just feel if there's one thing that Wabash County has to get right, it is that we are creating more passionate residents here today. Community champions, people that are on fire for living in Wabash County. And that doesn't mean that we won't have our disagreements, our challenges, difference in perspective on one issue or on a couple hot topic issues that we've most definitely experienced here the last couple years living in our community, as all communities do. But the general core of what makes Wabash County a special place to live is the people, the amenities that we have here, just creating that passion. So again, that parents are talking to their kids and taking their kids to experience the different opportunities that Wabash County has to offer, and just creating this fire for living here. The people are bringing guests and visitors in to experience our community, and then ultimately that we are working really hard community-wide. Everybody, there's just this spirit of everyday community people wanting a better future here for our kids to move back to and raise their family here. We've got to get that part right. Just because if we don't get more passionate residents here, the idea of attracting others to live in a community that doesn't have passionate people that are working every day to make it a better place won't work and isn't right.
Yeah. You've said that over and over again, and I would back you with that every single time. You have to get that part right.
Agreed. There's nothing to add to that. I think that is key, and the progressive piece of it is don't stand still. We have to continue to be honest with ourselves as a community, address the gaps, and those gaps are addressed. It does take time, right? Those changes take years to get there. So creating that passionate resident, in addition to always looking for the next right thing to do, is what I think we have to continue to get right.
And I think that's one thing that Wabash County can do right, is that in the divisive country that we live in today, is not letting our opportunities, challenges that we face, and being on different sides of it, sticking together as a community. Maybe sounds cliche, but as close-knit as this community is, I think that we have such a unique opportunity to foster that opportunity for disagreement here, and not letting those things that, Christine, you may be on one side of an issue and I may be on the other, and we may never agree on one thing, but we agree on all these other things. But the one thing that we agree is that we choose to call Wabash County home. And so I just think there's such an opportunity here to be different as a community, and not let the next, because there'll be another thing, right? Whatever it is. We've been through school consolidation. We've been through renewable energy. We've been through all these things, right? And are those important? And absolutely. Do those impact people a lot? Is that a passionate issue for a lot of people? Most definitely. I'm not trying to downgrade that at all. But whatever it is that's next, just that we remember that this is our community, all of us. This is where we choose to live, and we can disagree on different things, but ultimately we're working every single day to make this a better place.
Couldn't have said it better.
Agreed.
Christine, I'm going to give you credit for this episode. I think this was your idea, but thank you then for reaching out to our listeners, getting their questions. Thank you for some really creative and thoughtful questions to be asked today. Just as a reminder that your ability to subscribe, follow, share it with your friends.
Rate and review.
I don't know how all that works, but I know that it's good for us. And it
Please do it.
And it will help us move this podcast forward and reach a larger audience. We will have in the show notes, we'll have the email address that we mentioned earlier. So if you've got a topic idea or you want to be on yourself, reach out to the email address, or there is the Google form that Christine mentioned. So thank you again for continuing to support us. And we are so honored to be able to be behind the microphones and do this. We'll be wrapping up season 1 here shortly. I mean, I can't believe how close the end of the year is. And we've got some good topics and ideas, and maybe some changes to make in 2026. So we're really excited. Thank you again for listening. None of this would be possible.
I have one more question. It's important. It is from, I think he's...
I think you should wait.
Are you sure?
I think just a minute. I think you should wait just a minute.
Okay.
I got to thank our supporters first.
Okay. All right. Of course you do. That'll tie right in.
That's so important.
Yeah, it is so important.
This podcast is not made possible without very generous community partners, which includes the Gilman Investment Fund, Sandra Kunkel Trust, Mark and Amy Ford, Paperworks Industries, the City of Wabash, the Community Foundation of Wabash County, and Visit Wabash County. Now, you said you have one more. One more.
This listener is probably competing to be president of our fan club. It's from Mike Paul. This is directed specifically, sorry, Alex, this is directed specifically at Adam. Is Adam running for mayor?
You said this was from Mike Paul.
This is from Mike Paul.
I'm not surprised. Mike, that's a great question. I think it's actually more deserving of Alex or Christine. But I will say that between the three of us, the answer is probably going to be... Until next time, this is Adam Stakeman. This is Thrive in Wabash County.